Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's TSFA virtual learning demonstration. My name is Amanda, and I'm the Education Assistant here at TSFA. We are pleased to offer these virtual learning demonstrations in 2020, made possible by the Texas Floral Education Underwriters. TSFA's virtual learning will be archived and made available at tsfa.org, located under the TSFA On Demand tab. Today, our guest speaker, Charlie Groppetti AIFD, CFD, will be presenting Holiday Gatherings. Inspired learning at its best will help you prepare for many gatherings that await you in your floral artistry. If you have any questions during the demonstration, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel, and I will bring them up during and after the presentation as best I can. Now, without further ado, please welcome back Charlie.
Hey everybody, Merry Christmas. One thing I discovered too, when you have florist hands, and this time of year your hands are usually calloused and cracked, and then you put hand sanitizer on them, ouch. I've never experienced that phenomenon before. Christmas florist hands and hand sanitizer. If that doesn't wake you up in the morning, I don't know what's gonna happen to you. I love Christmas and I love evergreens. And so it's a great time for color and texture to really celebrate the holidays. And when I start thinking about floral designs that I love, they all tend to have a special meaning or remind me of a special time. That's, I think, most event flowers, or anytime we receive flowers, there's always a great memory attached to it. That's what's so great about our industry. So in thinking about today's program, I wanted to do a little different color palette, and I started thinking about Christmas color palettes. And really, I narrowed it down to two. There is traditional red and green Christmas, ho, 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 and there's nativity. So these two, can they coexist? Can they commingle? Can you blend from this to this? Well, this is the thought process, and this will be demonstrated today in different variations of this color palette. So if you go from this beautiful vintage peachy coral carnation, and you start to look at Eucalyptus. This is one of my beautiful products from Wolf Wholesale, one of our sponsors today. And, I cut a lot, but the greenery that I received from Wolf Wholesale was fresher, more fresh than what I could cut from my own yard. I don't know how they did it, but some of the most beautiful evergreens I've ever seen. I was so happy to get them. So if you look at Eucalyptus, it has that beautiful pinky coral blush to the stem. So we go from the carnation to that blush on the stem. Australian pine, which has that same sort of fleshy color. I love oranges. It's sort of a nod to colonial Christmas, and I love the fragrance. This is something I cut from the landscape, actually. It is Viburnum tinus. And right now it's setting flower buds for later in the year. So they're a beautiful reddish pink color. Magnolia, but in this case, I'm more interested in the underside to start to blend from this to this to introduce the greenery. Cedar, a good green that plays off magnolia. And then we start to transition our color. This is a holly called apple, and it's not as red as holiday red, but it's sort of a burgundy. So we lay in our apple red holly, good old dependable garnet mums, Brazilian pepperberry, very similar to California pepperberry, beautiful freedom roses from Wolf, gorgeous, thornless, beautiful red, and then the bright red of the holly. So that is really the color range and the color blend of how we're going to work our palette today. With customers, I really like to sell them flowers and greenery. I'm not so into selling containers a lot of times, and many times they have so many, they don't really want to receive another container, and it's a time of entertaining. Everybody has a cookie sheet, a silver tray, a punch bowl that they have in their entertaining arsenal. And so in this case, I walked upstairs and I saw this lonely punch bowl sitting in the corner. When I was a kid, if you're a family that owned a punch bowl, I thought, they must really be rich because they have their own punch bowl. It was sort of a status symbol if you had a punch bowl. And so punch bowls, again, it was a memory of I thought having a punch bowl was the coolest thing. Now you can find them in thrift shops. Many people have them, but don't really use them because they're not making punch soap very often. But it makes a beautiful hurricane. And what a statement piece. If you just take your empty punch bowl, drop a candle in it, and it becomes this beautiful hurricane. It already, this with just greenery is a big statement piece because the scale is so great. So what I did, I just took the dependable Loamy dish, 2 blocks of foam, and just started building with greenery. And at Christmas, it's really important to think about what greenery does, your materials. So the cedar, it is flat and sweeping. So you want to start that as a base because it really sort of lays on the table beautifully. And then if you have arched pieces like this cypress, this juniper, it curves. So it really looks pretty with the curve of the bowl. And then the red roses and ornaments and pine cones to give you that emphasis and focal point. It's just a really nice blend. And since we want to use some orange, and what really sort of takes the oranges and relates them to a pine cone are the little studs of cloves. So then it's not such a big shock. You can see the transition of color where you go from orange to the cloves to this beautiful pine cone. So it makes sense, and it gives you that texture. You know, I look at this and I go, oh, I don't have time for this. But once you get going, it really goes quite fast. And, you know, instead of mindlessly watching the Housewives of Beverly Hills doing nothing, do this while you watch it or while you're watching The Voice. It's very easy. If you just sort of start with your kebab or toothpick and just make a series of little pilot bowls, and then it's very easy to insert the cloves. It goes really fast. So not every orange in your design has to have cloves. I put 3, and then I just put plain ones to kind of fill it out. Now cloves, if you go to the grocery store and you buy a little container, are very expensive. But if you go to your local Asian market, big bags, real cheap. And even just a bowl of cloves is a really nice accessory to floral designs or on a side table with a candle. I mean, even in the simplest sense, that's quite pretty. So we have all these beautiful textures. We're blending sort of the dark red sides. There's a few glass ornaments that are pegged in. And so let's say we don't want to use our punch bowl as a hurricane, a candle holder. Let's use it for punch bowl. All right. We can use it as a punch bowl. I saw that. Okay. So this punch bowl topper is an Oasis floral ring. It just sits right here on the bowl. Now, it's a small bowl. If you have like a large Revere bowl that's more open, you can get a larger size wreath and top that on there. And with the silver of a Revere bowl, you can get from rental companies if you don't have one. It looks beautiful with roses. A wedding with white roses on a silver bowl would be gorgeous. The reason why this piece brings back memories, our first open house, when Todd came to California, he, at Tipton Hearst in Arkansas, had done a wedding with a big silver punch bowl with a ring of roses. And it was just all bast roses, it was solid roses. We did that for our Christmas open house in California, and people still talk about that punch bowl. And it was beautiful. It was a serving piece, but it was the focal point of the event. And it was very memorable. So this piece, again, brings back Christmas memories for me. Now, because this is sort of a small punch bowl with curves in, and we want to keep the opening correct, I purposely stayed away from holly berries in this because I don't want a holly berry in my punch. I'll take a cranberry, not a holly berry. So we can't really put roses here. So what I did, the Port Orford cedar, you just take like this, and our old friend, the greening pin, and you can cover the entire inner ring with just cedar very quickly and very economical because all the money is out here. This is one bunch of roses and oranges and filler. There are some garnet mums tucked into this as well. So not a lot of roses. For easier pricing, one bunch of roses and your ring, and then you can pretty much figure out the cost of what else you want to do. But I purposely tried to limit to one bunch of roses because we know as designers, if you have two bunches, you're going to use two bunches. But if you can try, do it one and use some other variations. There are little apples, and this little pinky coral color is the viburnum tinus. And I think it's really important too at Christmas, everything is needle textured of pine and cedar. It's great to use broadleaf, any kind of broadleaf, even good old lemon leaf, whether it's green or gold or sprayed silver. It always, they play well together. And whenever you have textural contrast, it's just much more interesting. And a lot of these broadleaves, like Magnolia, lemon leaf, they last just as long as the evergreens do. So they're compatible as far as the longevity. So took the candle out. So let's make some punch. I just want you to see the color in the bowl. We're going to go cheater punch. There's clove oranges in this. We sliced oranges. Remember, you can slice an orange in half, cover twice the territory. It helps you with your budget. The secret to a good punch is ginger ale. And everyone's aunt has the best punch recipe ever. So just ask your aunt, and you'll get a good recipe. The reason I'm making the punch is because I want you to see the color. Florists can make punch too, especially when you do what we're going to do. Then take some cranberries, some beautiful cranberries, drop them in the water, and we'll slice up some oranges. So not only the floral elements as a pedestal around the punch, they're in the punch. So it's a treat for all the senses. So when people look into this, it's all going to make sense to them. All right. I'm a little thirsty.
I bet that smells absolutely amazing.
Yeah, oranges, cloves, evergreen. And see, actually, let me get a little cranberries. And it's great. Always good.
So, Charlie, we had somebody ask, won't people knock flowers into the punch when they're getting the punch out, or how is that secured in there to where it won't come down?
It's all inserted into this foam ring. I mean, they're not, once they're in there, if you cut them too short, that's a possibility, but it shouldn't fall out. And this is a dry. When they're wet, they even cut more. Admittedly, this is a little tight. I would like to have a larger bowl, but I wanted to use what I had, and you can use your imagination to go wider. If you have a clumsy family or guests that maybe it's tight to punch, you better go with a wider bowl so you give them plenty of room to maneuver. Now, you can easily just do the punch. It's really pretty, and you can see all the botanical elements in there as well. But depending on the shape of your bowl, you can determine what treatment you want to do. Are there any other questions? That's a good question.
No, everyone is admiring your piece there.
Here's the wreath, and that really features the Freedom Roses a lot. This is really heavy, so I'm going to deconstruct it. The bowl and the 2-brick base were in my passenger seat of the car, and I kept wondering, why is my seatbelt is fastened? Well, it's because my passenger seat had so much weight in it. There you go. It was setting off the alarm for the belt. And you can see, because the bowl is so big, there's really no need to put material. It's just in the middle. It's all around the outer edge. Okay. Real quick, I want to talk to you a little bit about merchandising. It doesn't hurt to have fresh fruit in your store, like the little clove oranges and things like this. This is a wood bowl filled with cranberries. You know, a box of candles is boring, and people may walk right by it. But let's say you take a little bit of your greenery and some scrap ribbon, tie 3 candles together, merchandise it in a bowl of cranberries, and put that out tomorrow on a Saturday. I bet you sell some candles. It's just taking those little objects and giving it a little fresh treatment. The cedar, the juniper, the magnolia will all hold up really well. And the cranberries just give it a holiday suggestion. If you laid several bunches of candles in there, I think they'll sell. They'll go right out the door. Just makes it a little special. Holly. There are several kinds of holly, and I had 4 types. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you a little bit about holly. So one of my favorites is Savannah. Savannah is a little loose. It's a little more freewheeling. It's a brighter green, and it's a bright red. It has a really more casual, natural shape to it. The berries aren't super big, but it's really pretty and very useful. Then there's Nellie Stevens, which is really that old English-looking glossy holly with little pricks and little thorns on the leaves, but big red, holiday red berries. Nellie Stevens is the one that you can have 25 to 30-foot hedges of this holly. Very pretty, very traditional. This is one you see in landscapes a lot, trimmed into round balls because it's a real round, natural shape. This is Burford, and it could get about 6 feet high. A lot of times it's trimmed so much you don't notice the berries, and the berries are a little more recessed on the stem, not toward the tip. But it has a really neat little shiny, glossy leaf, and it's just a nice little scale. This is one I discovered a few years ago when I bought a holly plant at Christmas. It's not red, it's more of a pinky burgundy. It's a beautiful color, and it's called apple, and it really is an apple red holly. So those are 4 of my favorites and 4 that I grow. All right, so nativity. I saw my peachy hydrangea sticks. There's just beautiful long straight sticks that I knew I could use for something. So I cut them up and I just inserted them in a crisscross pattern. And I created this little design. So terracotta, which really harkens back to the nativity color that I like so much. And let me get a few things up here. This is live oak. I think I'm going to go a little big. Yeah, let's take that away. Oh, and take these clothes away. I'll know I'll knock that over. All right. So live oak, to me, just looks nativity. And it has that beautiful gray-green color. And really, it looks like olive to me. It holds up great. So we're going to do a strong horizontal through this. Now, fantastic cedar. I'm going to, sometimes, you know, we salt, pepper, greenery too much. I think at Christmas and all the texture going on, I think it's sometimes just good to just chunk it out and really show it in its natural form and really group it really well. I'm going to place this on two sides. Gotta watch out for this. Got that. There we go. And we don't want to waste. Every piece is great.
Looks like the term "chunk it out" is going to be trending.
Yeah, just don't chunk it out on New Year's, okay? Promise me. This is a beautiful sapphire blue. It just has such beautiful movement. This is a real tough, shrubby evergreen. And I love it. If you look at your trend, Florist Review just had an issue that showed their floral trends for Christmas. And this blue-green color, like eucalyptus, that kind of color is really important in one of the color palettes. Okay, so I'm gonna flip this around real quick. We just have this really nice framework. This is Little Gem Magnolia. The challenge here is you can't cut your stem so long because you're going to run into my sticks. But the sticks serve a purpose, I promise. There we go. Now, this is my good friend Agnes, Russian olive. We're inserting in opposite directions. And we're going to create just a little shelter with this. It really self-winds. It has these brackets, little stems here. It will pull you off the lawnmower if you get too close. They are strong. So it holds itself together. Cutting everything at an angle. Get that little spear tip so it goes right into the foam. Going on this. One more. This little sheltering line not only creates support for the focal point, it also is added value. perceived value of this is much more now by just adding a few inexpensive stems of greenery. Okay, so that's where we're at. Now, we're going to go back and fill this in. Princess pine is a very wispy, beautiful, delicate pine, and I love the name. Suits it well. And it's also going to reinforce this circular movement we have here. Do this on both sides. Okay. All right, now we're gonna add a little color. I think the Brazilian pepperberry is a nice choice. We're gonna cut this in 2 pieces. And really, if you take some of the foliage off, you'll notice the berries a lot more. We have plenty of foliage as it is. We wanna notice the beautiful berries. And again, it's that beautiful sort of fresco pink color. You think of nativities, you think of the colors of the characters in the nativity and the beautiful fresco colors that they are. They're all very muted and aged. And that's the color palette we're featuring here. Taking these leaves off. Get this around here. All right. More gray-green. This is seeded eucalyptus. And it's a beautiful drapey material. Looks good in the front, draping over. And I'm being mindful to really do 3 stems. It's not a big stem like this, at least 3 pieces. So you sort of zone them together. You get that little emphasis. Materials don't get lost. All right. And by coming out of the front of the container, it's almost as if you're inviting the viewer in, reaching toward them and drawing them into the design. Perfect color of the eucalyptus for this. All right. I don't think I need the Australian pine. I just think it's too much texture. It's unnecessary. We'll take a few carnations, and we're just this beautiful sort of fresco pink color. If your carnations are a little tight, just roll them between your thumb and index finger, loosen them up, and then sort of brush them out. That way they go from this sort of pinched look to that. And I'm going to tuck these in here just to give a little base of color. You can see the color combination of that soft gray with this soft fleshy color. So pretty. So that gives our eye. Once you've invited you in, there's a little landing spot for your eye to stop and look for a little bit. All right. I found some boxwood, and it's really not your traditional boxwood, but it's a boxwood that turns this beautiful terracotta color when cold weather comes. And I thought for this sort of nativity color palette, it would be very pretty. So we'll just tuck a little cluster here. It really picks up the container color as well. And we all know boxwood lasts a long time, so that's a good compatible greenery. All right, now I have a little bit of this pretty viburnum tinus. Add a little bit here. Yep. Okay. So this is what we have. This nice little framework, strong horizontal, little shelter. Now we're going to finish it up. We've got some straw or hay around. We're going to cover up foam top, cover our mechanics with this hay. And it's an added texture, so kind of co-mingle it with the flowers. I think if you have a little exposed foam here, tuck it in. You just tuck it in, it'll secure itself right into place. Now let me turn this around, finish this front. We use a lot of straw and hay for merchandising too. Big containers of Christmas ornaments. If you want to look sort of old-timey and nostalgic, fill your big tubs with straw or hay. It's how they used to ship glass bottles in the good old days. So it just adds that ambiance to everything. Then in this little area here that I created with the stems, we're going to put a little straw. And if you have an ornament or an old card, this is the best little baby Jesus I could come up with. So I took a picture of a cherub in my garage and I printed it on our computer. You can do a much better job with your graphics. Or if you have a little ornament, your little baby goes in the manger. So not only are we doing a nativity-inspired color palette, it actually becomes a little sheltering nativity design. And if you're into modesty, I mean, that Brazilian pepper leaf comes in real handy. Or Magnolia, depending what you want to use. Something long lasting. Even you could probably create a little halo out of some foliage. Let's see if I can do it real quick. Do this on the fly. Oh, well, not bad. Some great little botanical material to create his little halo. That might be great with a little gold accent or silver on it. So that is just a very textural little manger that you can make from scrap out of just springs or things that you discard. So maybe that's not a scale that you want or everyday sale. We can do a little the same color palette or some combination. This is a great little simple terracotta pot. Even the most simple garden terracotta pots. The candle already becomes a focal point. It takes up a lot of foam, so it doesn't take a lot of materials to go over it. Usually when I'm using material like this cedar, I do 2 cuts. I sort of go into the angle and cut. Instead of cutting like this, you got this ugly blunt end. You should go in and you cut at an angle in between the florets. That way, you don't have that going on. You can double your material. You don't waste. And that's really your profitability in floral design. A lot of it is in what you throw away. So you're really trying to have zero waste. It's just like the restaurants. You've got to move and rotate your material. Smells so good. So this is really a basic way to, I call it, create a skirt around your piece, your centerpieces. Everything really starts with this basic sort of design. If it's a long and low, you know, your pieces are just longer on the sides. We'll do some pine. And this is a great way, these small sort of garland designs around candles. It's a good way to use these small pieces or broken pieces. And because they're such short stems close to the water source, they hold up really well. They tend to last longer. I'm sort of curving this up to kind of support the visual of the candle. I'm not getting close to the flame. We're keeping it clear from that. And, ooh, yes. You can use cowie picks or kebabs. Most of my foliages were from all the evergreens, like the pine, the cedars. They're all from Wolf Wholesale. And things that you can grow in Arkansas and Texas. There's a lot of native cedars. They work really well. As well as green giant. It's a thuya. You'll see it. It's big, pyramid-shaped shrubs. Probably at a golf course in landscapes. That grows really well, and it's a really pretty evergreen. Magnolia works great. Look around at nicer neighborhoods, shopping centers, and you'll kind of see. Now the thing that you have to remember is a lot of times these evergreens are trimmed into formal shapes. You don't really see their natural style, the natural look. So you have to sort of go beyond that. I've added 3 of those cloved oranges, and this is a shrub that's easy to grow, boxwood. Boxwood topiaries. The boxwood is just a little mix of foliage I love. And it has, there's green velvet boxwood. There's this one with the terracotta color, which is really looking good with these oranges. And I'm not peppering it, salt and peppering it around. I am chunking it out. Hashtag chunk it out. Maybe I'll get a catchphrase. About time. We're going to put this Australian pine, is what they're calling it. Interesting color. And it's just going to play off these oranges really nicely. Right. So that's what we have so far. It's very balanced. We're doing threes. Threes always balance nicely. And I think we'll return to our eucalyptus, seeded eucalyptus that's setting the little seed pods here. It will actually dry beautifully. And because it has a natural drapey cascade to it, we're going to use it here at the lip of the container. And I am just repeating everything in threes, groups of 3. Very easy. It's also a very easy way to assembly line something if you have a very specific pattern. And what else? That's pretty. Now, Magnolia. You can use it 2 ways. First, inspect it for, like that got bit by something. Let's get rid of it. But now it looks perfect. And we're going to just place it there. We'll get 3 pieces. Here we go. Magnolia you can use, as the full stem, but also don't be afraid to use the leaves. Just cut it at an angle, a little petiole part, and you can just insert the leaves. They'll still last as long. You don't have to have them attached to the main stem. And Magnolia is another foliage that will actually become more interesting as the leaves curl and dry, and it takes on this really pretty parchment texture. So it holds up for a long time, but also dries beautifully. And even to bring in the color, a lot of times you can reverse the leaf to accentuate the orange side. Now, not all magnolias have a rusty red underside. You need to make sure your variety that you're ordering does.
Now, Charlie, did you secure that candle in there or with glue or anything, or is it just kind of setting up there?
I did not, because it's so flat and wide, and it's sitting on top of a wide, flat piece of foam, and it's protected. These oranges aren't going to let that candle go in anywhere. But if you want, you can just take a little pick and stick it in there. If you try and take the candle in, it just becomes sort of a mess. So in something like this, I let it sort of ride. It's not secured, but because it's so flat and wide and has weight, and the base has weight, it's sort of naturally balanced. Now, if you have a delivery driver that trips a lot, it might be an issue. But in this case, it feels real good. All right, get a little bit more. But there is that old rule, better safe than sorry. So if you want to, you could dip it into pan glue quickly, but that just becomes, I think, a little unnecessary. And we have these little mums. It's a garnet. And we're just going to tuck them in here and there just to give us a little depth. We always think of mums, especially this color, for Thanksgiving, and everyone turns to white chrysanthemums. But this is such a rich, pretty color. I just thought it was really pretty. And when you mix this garnet with terracotta and then take orange, it really takes on, doesn't look fall, just looks rich. All right. I'm going to take a little bit of this viburnum tinus with that pretty fleshy color and finish this up. This color also of these little buds really helps support the garnet mums as well. Now, if you wanted something long and low, or for a center of a table, I just repeat this 3 times. I think it'd be a beautiful series, just repeating the same design. So it becomes a component. All right. Taking little short pieces, we want to tuck those around the candle. So when you look into the candle, you don't see raw foam. You see just some interesting textures. All right. Well, so this is this design. Really, it's not traditional, but it certainly has a Christmas feel to it with the burgundies, the velvety rust magnolias, that glossy color of the magnolia. You could go back in and use that little apple holly, which would be a pretty color with this. Mm-hmm. And if you want to add on sale, if you wanted to repeat the nativity a little bit, if you sell crowns or something, you could certainly top it with a little crown. And it's still free from the candle. And you can go that route with it. So it becomes really a beautiful Christmas offering.
Hi, Charlie. It's Kimi. This feels like old times.
How are you? A voice from the California past.
Yes.
How are you? I appreciate your work so much. You do such beautiful, organic work. I love what you do. I want you to post more.
Oh, well, thank you. But you are my inspiration. You have been since we were just wee children.
I know. It's another lifetime ago. Kimi and I started going to FTD meetings in California probably something like that.
Something like that.
Something like that. We learned a lot. And actually, we were really lucky to see a lot of great designers. I mean, our district brought a lot of great designers from all over the United States. And we learned a lot. We learned a lot. And, you know, hopefully some of that I can pass on to you all today.
Charlie has been is being modest because he was one of the designers that inspired so many of us to look beyond the Teleflora FTD wire service design books and take inspiration from nature. And to this day, I still look at things and kind of try and see them through Charlie's eyes.
You are so sweet. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you joined us today.
Yeah, this piece is gorgeous.
Thank you. This is, I wanted to really kind of take the opposite of the reds and go all the way to the fleshy pinks and corals and oranges. And it's basically the same idea. Your clients have serving dishes. This is on a big silver tray. Now, I got a little carried away and covered the tray up. But so you could use a cookie sheet, less glamorous. But the silver tray, if you design it properly and show little hints of the tray, like the handles and maybe the lip, a silver tray is another piece that people have that is up in the cupboards not being used. Something they might have inherited from a past parent. Those all have meaning and memory, and they become great containers. And with all this rugged evergreens and thick, hardy stems, this is the time of year where you need foam. This is 3 blocks of foam on the tray. If you're going to go big and flat, use a cookie sheet or a 9x12 Pyrex pan. Those are all great things that you can use. If you have other kinds of floral dishes, that's great. But the serving dishes have meaning and they have a great purpose. So this is a big silver tray. And I wanted to sort of see, since this carnation color was the inspiration for the oranges, I wanted to see if I could do a round sphere of these carnations to sort of mimic the oranges. And I didn't buy an oasis ball. I just carved a half a block just by beveling it into a semicircle form and then just setting the stems. This is setting on an elevated piece of foam so it will hold the moisture. Just have to add it to the ball, but being this tight in carnations, they'll hold up just fine. So a big sort of modern sphere, and then take it from the modern sphere carnations to the more natural roundness of the oranges. And big pine cones, and just sort of sweeping branches of, instead of tight and molded like the candle piece, we sort of let this be freewheeling.
How would you upsell, or how much would you upsell the crown for in that last piece that you did with the candle?
The crown is a Christmas tree, sits in a Christmas tree or an accessory. The crown retails for $20. So if you have, Christmas ornaments or candles, you should be able to, whatever you sell in your flower shop should be able to be incorporated into a floral design or be enhanced somehow with flowers. That will make it make sense for your business. Even to the little bag that you send out the door, a little piece of evergreen tied to the handle of that shopping bag will make your store distinctive, and it'll just make it special for the holidays. And I think that those are little things that already become very memorable and really more important. So this is, I used this material earlier. This is the viburnum tinus. And I was kind of lazy this summer and didn't prune my shrubs. And I'm glad I didn't, because they send up these beautiful pieces. This is the same material as this. This just has the flowering, the budding part of it. So if you wanted to add more value to this, and I'm going to have to flip this around. It's too hard to design backwards or in reverse. So let's say your client has this wonderful chandelier, or they just want this to be bigger. you can add these vertical branches. And these aren't just straight pieces. They have a lot of curvilinear movement to them.
Do you treat the wood skewers in the fruit, or what is your preference on that?
Actually, they're kebab skewers, so they're food safe. Now, you know, other picks might have a green paint or treatment to them. Any wood pick will sort of swell up with the water and stay in the fruit. So the kebabs, I like kebabs because they're round, and I have them in a drawer at home. They're handy and they work really well. They're not bulky. So I just use kebabs like you use to make barbecue kebabs. That's a good question. It's something to be aware of. You know, I had a bride ask me if she wanted delphinium on her cake. Well, I said, delphinium is poisonous, so I don't want to put that on your cake. So you just have to, it's just part of knowing your materials. And actually, as I add these foliages, the ball of carnation, because it's so curvilinear, it really makes more sense. But you can keep it long and low, or you can add these branches to it. I only did one ball of carnations, and then I clustered carnations to kind of imply that there was a sphere. I didn't feel like I needed to make another one. All right. So this is just a really pretty evergreen foliage. Now I suppose if you wanted to, the ball could come out and you could do a big fat candle. It's pretty. Let's see, balance this out. I'm always looking at the direction of the materials. This comes up and then it curves this way. So I'm going to, the direction I want is here. And that's why it's being placed where I'm placing it. So that way there's a little bit of movement to all of this.
Hey, Charlie, how did you waterproof the tray?
This has a coat, this is lacquered silver, so it is waterproof. It's a heavy duty tray that's waterproof. Now, be mindful, you don't want to use anything like a toll tray or something like that, but any kind of thing that you could polish, like silver or aluminum, just metal. If you're concerned, well, there's no residue, honestly. You can always put a piece of foil down if you're concerned about it. But this is just, will wash right clean. I mean, and actually this tray has a little dip in it. It has a raised rim. So actually there's about 1/4 of an inch of water that could sit in this and keep the flowers fresh. Now, cookie sheet has a taller edge. If you want to make sure it has more water, that's another great option as well. I just like having a big surface of foam. And, you know, normally you want to minimize the foam in any other design, but at Christmas, it's really all, because it takes so much greenery, but Christmas is all about the greenery. So, and it covers so well. I like, and the stems are stouter and hardier. I like having a little extra foam, especially if there's objects or candles that need a good sturdy surface to sit on top of.
How is the large pine cone secured?
The large pine cone, I will tell you, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 pine cones, and I just took it and I pushed it into the foam. And then by the time I get all these stems crisscrossed around it, it's locked in place. You can put a wire around it and put it into the foam, but really one wire on a pick, it will work, but it's not really necessary in this case because I know I'm going to with tension and insertions, I'm going to enclose that pine cone where it can't go anywhere. It's like, I'm a pine cone, here's a stem, here's a stem. I can't go anywhere. You're wedged in there. And you just be mindful of that when you're designing, because it's a block of foam, and these pine cones are sugar cones. They're this big. It's laying on top. It's pushed slightly into the foam, so some of the little pine cone petals are wedged in, and then you come in and start putting floral placements around it. I mean, this stem of Magnolia stuck next to a pine cone is a much better pick than a pick, because it's sturdy and you don't need to double up. It's already here. This is floral material with a pick already when you're trying to secure a pine cone into place. It's if you're doing something overhead and you want to make sure that nothing's going to fall out and knock someone out, yes, wire it in place. But this is sitting on a table as it's intended on a broad piece of foam, and it's picked into place with the stem placements. And it's just something to be mindful as you're creating it. You just sort of do it automatically. So there has been a lot of virtual competitions since COVID has started. And competitions are like fashion shows in Paris. It's more for, I view them as more of an advancement of ideas. And, you know, some things that I make in competition, I wouldn't necessarily send out to a customer. And I see competition pieces that I would think customers would complain about. And I find it ironic that you have to change your way of thinking a little bit from retail floristry to competition. When you see competition designs, some of them are very marketable and some are not. But I think the intention for them is to advance design ideas. And I think it's sort of a shame that if you make a really beautiful design out of your flower shop, you may not get an award for it. That doesn't mean it's any less than a competitive piece that won first, second, or third, or top 10. It's what you send out the door that really matters. From competitions, you may learn about a material or a technique, and those ideas you take and you sort of translate that into everyday design. I always find it ironic that we sort of have to change our thinking for competitive design versus competitive retail design when you're competing against other shops for people's attention. So with all the competitions going on, I think you have to view them as educational for new ideas and new techniques, new color palettes that you can translate to your everyday retail shop. And the trick here with retail is it needs to be economical, most of all. The labor becomes just as important as the materials you put into. So I just wanted to sort of point that out. I think it's an interesting topic, that they're for inspiration and there's a lot you can learn from them. But I think just because you make something beautiful and you may not win an award in a competition, that does not make it any lesser. It is a thing of beauty. And it's just, competitions are a different language, basically. And I wish there was awards for everyday designs that are fantastic, and maybe there will be someday. But I didn't want anyone to be discouraged by anything they may have done in competitions. It's all for the good.
All right, Charlie, we actually had a whole class with us today too, on top of our participants. Cassie Sanders is with us, and she had been showing this to her class for inspiration, so thank you so much for that.
Well, I appreciate that. It's great. If if there's any follow-up questions, you can email Amanda and I can follow up if you're thinking about something we talked about today and you have a question. Certainly contact Texas State Floral Association and ask your questions. We can certainly follow up on any questions.
Thanks for a wonderful presentation, Charlie, and thank you everyone for joining us today. A special thanks to all of our Texas Floral Education underwriters for TSFA. We would like to thank you for providing product for 2020 for the virtual learning demonstrations. They have been a wonderful learning experience for all. We look forward to seeing you all in 2021. Y'all have a good holiday season.